Hey, we are live. You know, guys, I have to give it to this guy, Gary Zart, because we just spent 12 minutes trying to get onto this site. Like I told him, I said, modern day technology is great as long as it works. Well, it wasn't working, so I probably lost a lot of viewers, but man, those of you who are still here, thanks for putting up with this. But man, okay, enough of that. Walleyes, guys, walleyes. Some of my earliest memories of fishing are jumping in the truck with dad and driving up to northern Wisconsin to catch walleyes, but these were walleyes. Gary Zart catches walleyes. I can't tell you how many thousands of dollars my dad spent driving up to even northern Canada to catch walleyes. And I'm still talking. The first time I ever went to Lake Erie, which is where this guy fishes, I called him from the hotel and said, Dad, I caught 2 8-pound walleyes today. And he says, I'm going to call bullshit. Wait till you see the pictures, Dad. 2 8-pounder. I was fishing with the PWT, which Gary Zart used to fish. Wow. Lake Erie, guys. Lake Erie. Walleye factory. Best walleye fishing place in the world. I know a lot of guys will argue with me about that, but I'll argue with them, man. You can't argue with, population surveys of 100 million fish. But anyways, without further ado, here's one of the best Lake Erie charterboat fishermen I've ever had the pleasure of talking to, Gary Zart. How you doing tonight, Gary?
Hello. Thank you for having me on the show. So it's great to see you again.
Yes, thank you for putting up with all those shenanigans before.
Modern technology. You got to love it. For us older guys.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah. My job just changed, so I wouldn't have to put up with as much modern technology.
I know. Nowadays with the boat and all the new stuff, I look at my son Nicholas and go, hey, show Dad how to do all this stuff. And he goes, boop, 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 and he's done in 2 seconds. And I go, how'd you do that?
Gary, I just fished with a bass fisherman down here. And we fished all day long. We caught bass all day long. And he didn't even turn on his electronics, not even his GPS.
Yeah.
And we got done. And I said, you know what was really cool? He said, what? You didn't even turn on your electronics. He's like, why would I? It's like, yeah. Yes, exactly. I know where the. Okay. If I freeze, man, just keep talking. Just keep talking. We have about 30 mile an hour winds down here and down in. I know you're used to that. You go fishing and that kind of stuff, but down here we're not used to it.
Yeah, it's a little stormy here today. We have some high winds, and we tried to fish this morning, and we drove all around in the new Extreme trying to look for fish, and we couldn't find anywhere to fish on the non-wind side of the islands. So we just looked at the guys and said, well, we tried. Let's head back to the dock, and we did. So it has been a little bit of a normal winter and early spring. We haven't had one of these in a while, and we're having to change things around. We've been a little bit spoiled being able to fish every single month up here, but this year's been a little bit different with the ice and a normal winter and early spring.
Wow. So you run Blue Dolphin Charters, right?
I do. I have been a charterboat captain for, it's 23, 24 years now. And obviously I did a lot of tournaments before then, but yeah, the charter business is still doing good. Nicholas and I, we do it, and it's still a lot of fun. People say, how do you do it at the age of 58? And I said, I really do enjoy taking people fishing and teaching fishing and talking fishing like we are now. It's a lot of fun. It really is. I still enjoy it, and I don't when it gets old and I don't like it anymore, which I don't think I will. I think I always will like to talk fishing and take people fishing. God willing, that's what I like to do. And fishing with my son Nicholas, a dream come true
Oh,
and a sport that we both love, and watching him grow, and
I
he's on
totally
and all
imagine, man.
that. Oh, it's very rewarding to know that he has a career ahead of him for years to come, and he's it makes me feel good because he's better than me, and that means I did my job, and that feels good inside
Yes,
for sure.
yes. When the student starts teaching the master's job has been done well.
Yeah, yes, and he teaches dad a lot of the new stuff now, which is really cool, like the live scoping and everything. So uh, he's
Oh,
definitely a little
your
harder on
website,
me
Gary.
than I was on him, but it's okay.
Yeah. What is your website?
BlueDolphinWalleye.com is my website. Always has been. Yeah, we do about 250 trips a year. Just this past year, this is my second year with Extreme. I was with StarCraft for a very long time, as you know. I was with the StarCraft family, and I left them a couple years ago with an opportunity to fish with the Extreme family. And I'm running an 8/8 cents Game King, powered by twin Mercuries, and I have Simrad and
Ooh,
Lowrance on there, and Cisco rod holders, and it's a heck of a machine. The new one's got a lot of bells and whistles that make fishing and riding in Lake Erie much more enjoyable on rough days, to say the least. It really handles big water very well. So, very excited to be part of the Extreme family.
I bet you are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
Richard
something that
Ziegler, who's a good friend of mine down here, a fisherman. Richard Ziegler just checked in. He said, "Good evening, gentlemen. You will stay way young doing what you're doing, Gary."
welcome, Richard.
Yeah, I've been fishing with Richard. He's a great fisherman. I really enjoyed that day.
Yeah, yeah.
So, do you mostly troll on Blue Dolphin? Well,
We do. Most all of our charters, for the most part, I shouldn't say all, but 99% of the charters are trolling charters. We have recently started to do live scope charters. Normally, those are on the Ranger 622 that Nicholas has. Nicholas
ooh, a
is a
620
yeah,
big boat.
he's got an awesome a walleye boat that we use for the tournaments. He teaches live scope trips on there. He's very good at teaching it. He taught me. A lot of people are interested in that live scoping right now, so it's a good way for him to show his expertise and teach people how to do that. It's definitely a an amazing technology that I just sit there when he was teaching me, like, really, is this what fishing has become? I first I was kind of against it, and now that I've learned it,
You
and
know,
it truly is it's amazing technology. There's no question about it. So
it's here. A lot of people are trying to stop it. I don't really like to get into that, but I've done quite a bit of live scoping with the guys I go out crappie fishing with. It's fun. So how would you catch a walleye using live scope, Gary?
So the live scoping will tell you where the fish are in the water column, how far they are away from the boat. We use a lot of different kind of like hyper rattles and a jig with a little spinner and a half a crawler. And one thing that it'll tell you how far you have to cast and where it is in the far away and how deep it is in the water column. And the thing I really found intriguing when I started to learn live scope was, there was always all these theories on how walleyes react to a bait when you're trolling.
Yeah.
And one of the
Yes.
things that I always taught in my seminars were that I thought was true, and I was proven wrong by live scope, is that a walleye will only go up to hit a bait. He will never go down. And live scope changed that whole philosophy and that whole theory that walleyes will go down to hit a bait. We watch them on live scope go over 40 feet of water, go from 10 feet, and they will chase a lure all the way down to the bottom and pin it with their chin in a blink of an eye at 30 miles an hour. So it really
How
does.
many walleyes have you caught? I have caught so many walleyes jigging in their chin,
Yep.
and
And that's
now you
because they're
just told me
pinning
why
it.
that happens.
Yeah, that's exactly why. And the other thing that's amazing too is like how long they will follow a bait. It's amazing. Like they will, when you're jigging that jig in front of their face, they will follow that bait, and sometimes they still won't hit it. They're mad that it's in their family room, and they'll follow that thing for minutes upon minutes and never hit it. So it really has taught me as a older angler and somebody that, like you and I that have done the old jigging and the old trolling and, everything else. It really has taught, many different characteristics of a walleyes that I had no idea, at all. Yeah.
One thing I've learned from doing this show, I talked to a lot of guys who live scope for bass, and they said they thought that bass were sedentary, that they just sit there and they ambush. Well, live scoping, they see the bass are always moving. I knew that walleyes always move. We used to say, even back in the days when I was following the PWT around and you were still fishing it, back in the 90s, they said that walleyes always have their bags packed.
Yeah.
We knew that, but also I heard from these guys like Tommy Scarless, like, geez, Gary Parsons, Ted Takasaki, all these guys I fished with, that walleyes, they're like crappies. They only go up. And now we're learning they go down too. We were wrong.
They were
some
wrong.
Of the best walleye fishers, some of the best walleye minds in the world.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, when Nicholas first told me, because he's the one that learned that technology first, and he goes, Dad, they'll start at 10 feet and they'll go all the way down to 40 feet in a blink of an eye and pin that bait. And I go, no way. And he goes, yeah, watch this. And sure enough, he showed me, and I was like, wow, that just rewrote the whole book on, what we thought about what walleyes did and, what they actually do. So I thought that was cool. I really did. And the technology has that they have now has taught us so many new things, which for older folks like you and I think that's a neat thing, for
It is a
sure.
neat thing. Another really neat thing. Of course, I used to live in Northern Illinois. I bought a 19-foot Triton, and I started going up to Green Bay a lot. I wish back then, because I moved away, I sold that boat in 2011, and I moved to Alaska. And I wish I would have known back then that you can catch walleyes casting on Green Bay. I have caught walleyes casting on Lake Erie, but that was back in the days of Erie Dairies.
Erie Dairies, sure.
That was
now that the water's so clean, it's changed. That part of it has changed the whole, dynamic of how to catch them and what they do and everything also. So
they're catching them on all kinds of, like you were talking about, like modified rattle traps.
Yeah, hyper rattles and
so much fun.
Yeah, it is.
That thing.
Yep.
Whipping that thing and
I know. And how the thing I always amazes me too is how long they will follow a lure, without hitting it. They'll just follow it just to follow it, and then all of a sudden they, a lot of times they won't. Well, I shouldn't say a lot of times, but sometimes they won't hit it, and they'll just swim away. They won't even bother. So that part of it is cool in itself. For sure.
I've actually sat there on live scope and watched, and dropped my jig down on top of a big tree and started doing this, and watched a whole school of crappies float up and just look at it.
Yeah.
And then I'm doing like this, and they go, but then I start, real slow, and they come back up, and one time I just held it there, and one of them grabbed it.
Grabbed it. Yep.
And I'm looking at this, and I'm like, how could anybody hate this?
Yeah. This is fun. It's like playing a video game in your family room.
And just like you and me, 40 years of fishing, and I learned more in 20 minutes about crappies because
I know.
before it was just trial and error. You throw out your minnow, it goes down on your slip float, and you
Oh
sit
yeah.
there and
Yep.
so then you bring it in and you readjust. Okay, let's see if they're a little bit further down. Let's go down in that tree now.
Yep. Yep.
And
Yep.
before that, oh, okay, I guess I'm back. And before that, it was just, when we just had the green box, the Lowrance that made the really cool noise.
Oh
That
yeah.
was that was just basically trial and error.
Oh yeah.
You,
Absolutely.
you, you had a cone that was about this big, and
Yep.
and you could miss that tree by 6 inches, and like, oh, it's not here, and it was just
Yeah.
6 inches that way. You never knew.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Crazy.
But
Crazy,
one thing I would
crazy.
like to tell you guys, if you want to go to Lake Erie and you want to cast for walleyes, you need a great rod because you don't know if you're going to catch one of
Yeah.
these guys or one of Gary Zart's walleyes that's
Yeah.
32 inches long.
I need those during tournament day. I need 5 of those.
This is a Grant Rod Cuda, and I mean this thing. I currently have this rigged for redfish, and for
Okay.
redfish, it's the same thing. I don't know if I'm going to catch a 13-inch long trout, speckled trout, or a
Yep.
20-pound redfish, or like Jim Grant caught a 50-pound redfish. I've never
Wow.
come close to that.
A 50-pound redfish. Wow.
I fish for those things all the time down here. It's a 2-hour drive down to the coast, and
That's a monster. That's an
yeah,
absolute monster.
to tell you
That's
how much
all.
I like them.
That's on my bucket list. Actually, I've never caught a redfish before, and I've redfish, and I always wanted to catch one. So
If you're going to come down here, call me.
yeah, I will.
I
Sure.
don't have a boat, but all my friends do.
Yeah, yeah, that's
This is a
definitely on my
Cuda.
bucket list. I've always wanted to catch one, so I will definitely call you when I can walk away from up here being so busy and go red fishing. That would be great for
Man, you
sure.
got to have fun too. I know that your job is fun, but
Yeah, it is. I mean, I still get to do it with Nicholas, and like I said, this new venture with Extreme really kind of, you know, put a new spark under me, and I enjoy the, knowing all the stuff that I know now, like with boats and everything. It kind of rekindled my excitement and a company that will listen, and in the design part and things like that. Do this. That's fun. I love that kind of stuff because you and I've been in this business a long time, and we know what works and what doesn't work. And it's not just with boats; it's with everything. Not, I shouldn't say everything. I don't want to
yeah,
sound like I know it all, but you know what I'm saying. And that kind of stuff is exciting when you get when people actually listen to you, and they'll go, oh yeah, okay,
yes,
yeah, that makes sense, and then they go from paper to actually doing it, and then when you actually use it, you're like, oh my gosh, like, hey, this is great,
yeah.
so
You know,
yeah, so
Guy
it really
Smith.
is kind of cool. What's that?
You a person named Guy Smith just checked in, and he said Gary Zart and
Oh, my
Nicholas are
buddy.
the best around.
We just took him and his family out on a couple days ago, actually, on Lake Erie, and we absolutely smoked them. We had a
That is
blast.
so much
We
fun.
filled up they couldn't believe how we were catching a lot of pre-spawn still. So they were,
Ooh,
it
big old
was, they got some monsters for sure.
big
So
old stomach.
thanks, Guy, for stopping in. That's great. So
But
yeah,
guys, what I like about this Cuda, when you're casting a lipless crankbait, you got to be able to cast that. Lipless crankbaits, you can cast them a country mile, and
hmm
if you see a target on that live scope, you want to cast past it.
oh
But
yeah,
then when you're going in, you can see how far down your lure is and also you can see how far down that fish is. So you have time. Then you have time to pull it up
yep,
or let it down. So I want to hit that fish right on the head.
Yep. 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 Yeah.
That's what I want to do when I'm trying to get live scope fish. And if that fish is 60 feet out and you have a rod like this and it bites, I can still set the hook.
Sure.
That's a power. If you're using a lesser rod, and you might not have enough power in that rod to set the hook.
Exactly. Having the right gear is extremely important for sure. 100%.
Particularly with what you do with trolling, man, you need to have a great rod to troll. I know when I first started, I had a couple of Shakespeares, and man, I don't like to say anything bad. Okay, I had some lesser rods.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I've always used not always, but in the last, I think it's been 8 or 9 years now, I've been with the Fox River family, and one thing about us is we fish so much, and we do so many charters and tournaments that you not only need something that performs well as far as like the normal stuff, but the being able to handle the wear and tear of everything.
Yes.
I mean, we fish so much that if you don't have a good rod and reel, you're gonna go through a lot of rod and reels. So it's nice to have good equipment for sure. You have to have good equipment with as much as we fish, like you and I.
I can imagine taking a rod out of a holder with a 10-pound fish in it that you hooked when you were going, what, 2.5, 3 miles an hour?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's extremely, oh yeah. Yeah. It's extremely important to have good gear. No question about it. So.
It has to be superior gear. I mean,
it does.
Because when you're doing that 6, 8 times a day with that same rod,
yep.
Because it always seems like it's the same rod that catches all the fish. Even if you're switching rod or lures out on that rod, I don't know what it is. That's my experience anyway. It's the same. I have lucky rods and I have not so lucky rods, and I couldn't explain it.
Yep, absolutely.
Even though all my trolling rods are the same thing,
Oh yeah. Yep.
I can't explain it.
Sometimes it's not, but it's not even worth explaining.
Some of them
it is what it is.
I said some days it seems like I had spam on my hook, because even fish don't like to eat spam, and sometimes spam just gets on your hook without you knowing.
There it is. For sure. That's good.
Then I come down here in the South, and my wife's from West Texas, and she's like, "Hey, wait a minute, I like spam." I'm like, okay, next time I'm going to fish for you, I'll put spam on my hook.
Yep.
Because fish don't like it.
Yeah, it's it's one thing that I learned a lot too, not just with live scoping, but and Nicholas taught me a little bit about this too. Is back in the day when there was 100 million walleyes in the lake, and the lake fish so different down here, it was you could go out and basically know your different haunts that you would fish at certain times a year, and you knew those fish were going to be there, and that kind of thing. And now that the lake is cleaned up, and things are so much different with how much the fish move in a day, using your electronics, I think, is the most important part on the boat, besides having a good boat motor and trailer, obviously. But why you're fishing is having good electronics and knowing how to read them. I mean, there's times that Nicholas and I will graph for an hour in a certain area of the lake, before we even set a line anymore, because the fish are moving so fast, they adapt to things, they're doing things differently than they used to. And a lot of that has to do with water clarity and everything else, and it's very important to have really, really good electronics and know how to use them, and take the time to use them correctly and graph and do all that kind of thing to make sure that when you do stop and you start fishing, you're actually going to hopefully catch fish. It's pretty cool, to say the least.
That's a really good point. Know your electronics. even if you don't have live scope, you still have to know your electronics. Get in, and there's so much information available. Go on YouTube and ask it what I want a video that shows me what different bottom types look like on my electronics, and just type in what kind of electronic you have. Like if you have a Humminbird 360, what does a rocky bottom look like on Humminbird 360?
Yep, 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 yep. And that's the thing. It's you know, the other thing that's important is electronic setup. You know, having the right having the right transducer and where it's mounted on the boat, so you can graph at 30 to 40 miles an hour and be able to read fish and cover a lot of ground. Graphing. So that kind of that in itself is important. And then once you get that down, and then you go back over there, is knowing, then where you want your baits in the water. You set your icons, you go over those icons, and hopefully you start seeing boards go back, when you're fishing.
Yes.
So it's
How exciting is that?
yeah, Nicholas always makes the joke, all these people spend thousands of dollars on electronics and everything, and then they don't even know how to use them,
Yes.
and they're not even using them correctly, and it definitely is, probably besides the boat motor, it's the third most important part of the equation before you start fishing, without a doubt, and he's taught me a lot about that. There's no question about it. But with that being said, the technology that's out there now, like live scoping, and then all the other, is so far advanced than when you and I, fished back in the day, where you saw a blip and you wondered if it was a bait fish or whether it was a, 5-pound largemouth bass or a 5-pound walleye. I mean, it's just totally different now, and, there's probably going to be a day, down the road where you're going to actually be able to look at a fish, the actual fish, and, put the bait in front of its face and watch them eat it. You know what I mean? At 30 miles an hour, or something stupid like that, so wouldn't surprise me anyway. So,
I do agree with you, but also one thing I really enjoy about fishing down here is the water is so shallow that I have to know how to read water.
sure.
And that's what I've been doing all my life. I grew up in northern Illinois, and in the summertime, we would take our bikes down to the local stream, and we would just, I would have a few jigs in my pocket that were always getting stuck in my pocket. And, I didn't have the sense to do something different with them. And a couple of soft plastics. And I would just run down there to the stream and jump in and catch smallmouth bass.
Sure.
And I learned how to read water.
Yep.
And, but you can't read Lake Erie. The fish are 30 feet down over 50 feet of water. You can't read that. So rather than fishing blind, like Ryan Snyder, my buddy from Florida, said, you might as well fish blind if you don't know how to use your electronics. That is true where you fish, is that you absolutely positively need that.
Yep. Absolutely. It's, you spend all that money. I mean, electronics aren't cheap anymore, and, you might as well know how to use them and use them, use them correctly. And, that can be a game changer on any given day, whether you're tournament fishing, fun fishing, charter fishing or whatever, so, definitely, in my opinion, it's, besides the boat and the motor, it's the most important part of the boat. No question about it. 100%.
My earliest memories of catching walleyes were with my dad in northern Wisconsin on a lake called Aliquash, which is up by Boulder Junction, Wisconsin. And, and we had a little crestliner, and I would jump in the front of it, and Dad would be in the back, and we had a 10-horse seahorse, a Johnson seahorse on the back of that thing. And we would drive out until we didn't see the weeds anymore. Then he would throw out the anchor.
Yep.
Funk, whoosh. And then we would throw out bobbers and minnows. But we caught walleyes doing that because I think there were just a lot fewer fishermen back then in the 70s,
Yep.
but that's how I started fishing. And and we knew how to catch them. Then of course he got the green box,
Yep.
which revolutionized everything.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Ryan Snyder just said, look up the Omni sonar videos. Talk about spotting a fish and catching it at speed. That's where live scope came from. It was used for marlin and tuna.
There you go.
I bet there's so much money in marlin and tuna fishing. I bet that's where it came from. When you
Yep.
got guys who spend $1,000, maybe $2,000. Well, when you have four 350 horse motors on the back of your boat.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. It's bizarre. So who would have thought?
Yep, I see those things all the time when I go down to the coast. I see boats like that. Like,
And,
wow,
yep.
wow. Just those motors. Oh my gosh, $250K for some of those Omni sonar setups.
And yeah, it's insane to say the least.
That's more than my net worth, man.
I hear you. Yeah, I hear you.
That's more than my net worth. I'm gonna
Yeah,
cry.
you got
I'm gonna cry.
I hear you. Sure.
Well, we have a few minutes left here. Your favorite line of lures to troll with?
It all depends on the time of year. I was fortunate enough last year to get with Mark Kalick, and we actually designed a bait called a Deadeye, which is a knockoff of a Bandit. But the biggest difference between the two baits is a Deadeye has more rattles in it. It has 9 rattles in the chamber, and it makes a
Woo!
lot of noise. Yeah, it makes more
Is
noise.
it a
And
tight rattle or
a Bandit only has 4 rattles. A Deadeye has 9. It makes more commotion. As the thing kind of dive curved, actually dives a little bit deeper. That was an exciting opportunity that Mark gave me to help out with that. And, we actually kind of even built on that. Instead of, I'm sure you've heard of a rippling redfin. We actually had a baby eye that's like a rippling redfin, but also has 9 rattles. And they
now?
also
What
have,
bait company is this?
I'm sorry,
What bait company is this?
it's called Deadeye. It's that's actually the
Deadeye.
name of yeah, it's called the Deadeye. So we started using a lot of we started designing it about 2 years ago, a year and a half to 2 years ago, and they were real dominant last year and into this year. That was an exciting thing for me to do with Mark. Um, But yeah, that's crankbait fishing. Now that you control 3 rods per person on Lake Erie and most lakes,
Woo!
it's. I used to be a huge worm harness guy back in the day when you could do the 4-rod thing. I still like the
Yeah,
troll spinners, especially in tournaments. But when we're power fishing in charters and being able to troll, at the minimum of typically 9 rods. I mean, you're power fishing typically, and it's a lot of crankbait
yeah.
fishing. And, so that part of it
Sure.
was fun and still is exciting to do. Um, but
We have a question from the audience, Gary.
sure,
It's from Ryan Snyder again, my buddy in Florida,
yeah.
who by the way is a great speckled trout fisherman. He said, "What's the line type and pound test choice for trolling
Um,
walleye?"
when I'm running offshore boards, which are the little boards, the little yellow boards people call them. They're offshore boards. I've been with the offshore company for a long time. We use 12-pound Maxima, which is an excellent monofilament line. It's extremely durable, been around forever. Um, 12-pound test gives you that actually has a 10-pound diameter, which on the dive curves in the precision trolling is all based on 10-pound diameter. So that'll keep you, true on that. Now, when I'm trolling dip seas or if I'm trolling big boards, because a lot of times we troll big boards in the summertime, later in the summer, um, I run 40-pound braid, which is 10-pound diameter Power Pro. That works very, very well for us when we're running big boards. So also run braid on dipsies when we run a lot of dipsy divers in the summertime. We run the same braid that we run on the big boards. We run on the dipsies also. So it just all depends on time of year, how you're fishing, but it's basically either monofilament or braid. I mean, those are the two that we use the most of. We run some wire on big boards with kabooms and deep thunder sticks and stuff when we fish out deeper out of Geneva, Ashtabula in the late summer. But I'd say 90% of the time it's either mono or braid. So for the the way we fish. So did that answer his
Wow.
question?
Well, thank you.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it did. I'm sure it did. Okay. Ryan said good deal, and thank you for that. He's trying to get a better idea what's used for some of the freshwater fisheries. He's trying to expand his horizons at work.
Yep. Yep.
And he works for Diamond Fishing Products, and they do make some good work. They make some really good line. I've been using their line. They sent me a care package, and thank you very much, by the way, for that, Ryan. I've been using your line, and down here, man, it's tough online because you're fishing in a foot of water, and right underneath that foot of water is oyster beds, which you know about shellfish since
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
you have zebra mussels.
Yeah. We have zero mussels, but those
Yeah, so
they're talking about it even worse for sure. So it can do some real damage on line. To say
oysters are horrible.
oh yeah, they'll rip apart
Yeah,
line.
oysters are horrible online,
Yep. Absolutely.
particularly if you hook into a redfish and he takes off and you're just grinding against that stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I've been using a lot of Diamond Fishing Product line. And thank you very much, Ryan. Thank you very much for that. So what's the fishery looking like this year? Are you seeing a lot of big fish already?
We're seeing some big fish right now. We actually had a normal winter this year, so I think that really helped with the normal migration. There were a lot of fish that moved. We had ice for gosh a long time. There was a lot of ice fishing going on, and I always say that when you have those harder winters, I believe that the walleyes really, put on a lot of eggs and a lot of, they have a lot of, from eating a lot and all that. They seem to be bigger. They have more eggs and stuff. So that changed. We haven't had a winter like this in a long, long time. I mean, I can't even remember the last time we've had a hard winter where we could ice fish for the guys could ice fish as long as they did, and we just got rid of our ice about 2.5 weeks ago. So
Wow.
we've been catching a lot of big fish. I mean, a lot of obviously they still have eggs, but we have been catching a lot of fish in our charters. The tournament, I think there were three. The tournament we just had, there were 4 weights that were over 40 pounds for 5 fish. That was good to see. We've been catching a lot of 9 to 10, 11 pounders in our charters and things. So not a lot, but I mean, relatively speaking, a lot. And
So what would you consider it? What does a fish have to weigh before you consider it to be a big fish?
To us, I mean, if we catch something that's in that 10.5 to 11 pound range, I mean, Nicholas and I consider that a big fish, maybe a 10 pounder, a little over 10. But for a customer, they get an 8 to 10 pound fish, that's full of eggs, and they consider that a big fish, and it is. I mean, 28 inches is considered a fish Ohio. So and typically if you're catching a 9 to 10 pound fish full of eggs, I mean that's going to be a 28-inch fish, maybe a 27, but typically a 28-inch fish. I mean, let's face it. I mean, there isn't as many big fish in the lake as there used to be. I mean, we all know that. I mean, with there being no slot limit or anything like that. I mean, you can go and fill up your limit in a cooler of all 8 to 11 pounders if you want to. So the older I've gotten, I've kind of rethought a lot of how the management part of the lake has been, done over the years. And I'm just wondering now, I'm pretty boisterous. I mean, I'll give you my opinion if you ask me, but because there's not as many big fish in the lake as there used to be, could that have been better managed over the years with a slot limit like some lakes have, or only two per person, per trip, or something like that, so we still would have a lot of big fish in the lake. As far as fish itself, meaning walleyes, we have 100 million walleyes in the lake, but there's definitely not as many big fish in the lake as there used to be. I mean, not even close. I mean, those year classes of the 2014, 2015, you know, those schools are decimated. Give you a perfect example. I mean, just we have those big derbies in the fall all the time now. We don't catch the size fish that we used to. I mean, you used to have to catch a, you know, 13, 14 pounder that, typically win. And there were a lot of 11 and 12s in there in the top five. It's not like that anymore. And even when, as much as we fish, I mean, I can't tell you, I probably can't count on, my hands and my feet, how many monsters we catch anymore. Now, back in the day, used to catch a lot of monsters, so the lake has changed. It's still an unbelievable fishery. It's the walleye capital of the world. There's no question about that. But it has it has caught up with them, in my opinion, with all of the big fish that have been taken out of this lake over the years. It just and everything goes in cycles. It always has. No
Yeah.
matter what, that's how life is, and that's how fishing is, and it'll get back to that status again. You'll have a unbelievable hatch one year where and that hatch will be like the 14 and 15 hatch, where there's going to be a lot of big fish. Again, and everybody's going to be catching 10, 11, 12, 13 pounders. So. But it's still, like I said, it's still the walleye capital of the world. I've been to a lot of them, not all of them. I've been to a lot of them, and nothing rivals Lake Erie for walleye fishing. Nothing, and that's why we get the draw that we do. No
We do
question.
have another question.
Yeah.
This is the guy from Florida again, and
Okay.
he said walleye tournaments. Is it a catch, weigh, and release like a bass tournament?
It is not. All of our tournaments up here are kill tournaments. They don't want you throwing them back on the ones that we literally weigh them, and then they go to usually like shelters and stuff for people that are not as fortunate, for food and things like that. So we donate a lot of our fish to those kind of things when we have our tournaments. But they almost all the walleye tournaments on Lake Erie are kill tournaments. You bring your 5 biggest fish to the scales, and those fish end up going. You can keep them yourselves, or you can give them up for donation for, the things that I just mentioned.
I would like to say here that most walleye tournaments on places other than Lake Erie are catch, weigh, release tournaments. Just in Lake Erie, they say they have so many walleyes.
That is correct. Yep, that's you nailed it right there. Travis Hartman, who's a really good friend of mine, he's part of the biologist, of the ODNR, and I have the utmost respect for Travis, and he always has great data for all of us, and he used to do tournaments too, and they're all kill tournaments on Lake Erie. So all the fish that come in are are donated, or you can keep them if your fish. So. Any other questions?
Yeah, that's let me see. Oh, Ryan also says um that's nice that the tournaments donate a lot of fish. Good to hear. I know Richard Ziegler. I'm going to have to go up a little bit. Richard Ziegler said he's my buddy from down here. He says that very educational show. Being from the South, he hasn't caught a walleye, but is on his bucket list. And I told him, he ought to look you up. That Lake Erie is definitely the place to go if you want to catch your first walleye.
I would love to take him for sure. So you definitely should give Nicholas and I a call. So we'd have a lot of fun.
Man. Also, right down there, bluedolphinwalleye.com.
Yep.
If you want to get a hold of.
Yep. You can also call
Gary
me. You can call me at 216-849-4954. That's my cell number. You can reach me just about any time unless I'm sleeping. And even when I'm sleeping, sometimes I'll wake up and answer.
I think I woke you up last night.
I'm sometimes sleep with my eyes open, but
yeah.
When anyway, you don't sleep as much.
No.
Reason.
No, it's harder to get to sleep, and then once you get to sleep, it's harder to stay asleep.
I agree. I'm with you.
Would you like to do any shout outs?
Shout out to all my sponsors, Extreme, Deadeye, Offshore Tackle, Cisco Fishing System, Mercury, Aqua Traction. I know I'm missing some, but huge shout out to my wife, Kelly, who lets me fish all the time. My son Nicholas, who I still get to fish with, which I'm a lucky guy to be able to.
Very lucky.
Do. So, just all my sponsors, they're just, they're the best. I'm truly grateful for them and the family support and the friend support and all the customers that hire us in Blue Dolphin Charters. I mean, they let us do basically fish for a living, and that is that's really cool. That in itself is cool in itself. So it's very special, and I truly am blessed. That we're able to do that for sure. So
yeah, that's that's it right there. We can't do it without help from the industry.
No.
People used to tell me when I guided, geez, you money grubbing guide, you just make so much money. I'm like, really? Last week I made $2,000 guiding, but then my trolling motor went out.
Yeah.
And that was $1,500 to replace it.
Yep.
So tell me again.
Yeah, the support that I have on that end of it, with all the people from Permamarine and Extreme and Mercury and Morant, all those. I mean, Cisco. I mean, when you're fishing 260 days a year, if you don't have that support team, you're not going to be able to survive. That they're on it like white on rice, and they're always there when you need them. And that's super, super important. So you really do need that support group for sure. So, and then the family support is huge.
When people ask me what it takes to make it in this business, I said you have to have a great job. It's going to be very understanding, because you have to be gone a lot because as you know, I used to fish tournaments too, and I guided, and I was gone a lot. And if you don't have the undying support of your wife, if you don't have both of those, you're going to lose them both.
Yep.
And now I do have a wife who supports me in everything I do in the fishing industry. I didn't see her all week because I was gone. And then she asked me on the phone when I'm gone for work, what are you going to be doing Saturday? I'm like, I'm going fishing.
Yeah.
Have fun, baby. And she didn't say, Southern girl, oh, have fun, baby. No, she means it.
Yeah. Yep. She knows. I mean, when you're a fisherman's wife, you know,
These
they
girls
may
down
not
here grew up
always
with
be
their men.
100% happy, but they usually understand.
These ladies
So,
down here grew up with their fathers and their grandfathers, being gone offshore. So,
yeah,
it's just part of the culture, and
it is.
I
It is.
enjoy that because I'm not trying to do anything except follow my passion. I've done that literally since I was a boy. So
Yeah.
probably you did too. I grew up fishing. I'm never going to stop.
Yep. I'm not either. I'm going to die with the fishing pole in my hand, I'm pretty sure. So,
Yeah,
God
yeah.
willing. So,
Or one in the back of my truck when I'm driving there. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Yep. You
Well,
know.
anyways, man, it's getting time.
Okay.
Another thing about this that I need the undying support of is my visitors, the people who come here and watch my show. I thank every single one of you guys for coming here and watching my show. I can't do it without you. Also, Gary, I can't do it without guys like you. Thank you for everything you do for the fishing industry. You are a very good ambassador of what it means to be a professional fisherman.
I really
And
appreciate the opportunity. Every time we talk, you do a great job on you make it easy to do. So,
well,
and,
thank you.
that's half the battle. And I really appreciate all the support that people that follow you, watching the show, and it's what makes the whole thing go round and round in a good way. So,
I
um,
do agree.
yeah, absolutely. But thanks again for the opportunity and talking again. And God bless to everybody. And fish strong, as I always say. And let's definitely do it again in the future.
Oh, we will. We will. I'm sorry I waited so long to get you that. It's been crazy with everything going on in the country, but that isn't what this show is about.
Yep.
What this show is about, guys, it's Wednesday night. Make your plans to go fishing this weekend. I have 40, 50 mile an hour winds out there. I'm going this weekend. You know, in the end, when you're sitting there talking to your wife on your deathbed, you're not going to be talking about the great times you had watching The Walking Dead on TV. You're not. You're not going to be talking about that. You're going to be talking about the memories you made with her. You're going to be talking to your son about the memories you made with him. And,
Yep.
there's more to fishing than just fishing, guys. It's about the relationships you make while you're fishing, the great
Remember.
times, the great things you've seen. Yeah, memories, man.
Yep.
That's what life is all about. Make the memories, guys. Make the memories. Don't sit on your couch. So one of the few absolutes in fishing is you're absolutely never going to learn anything about fishing sitting on your couch. Even though I run a podcast, I still say that.
Truth. Truth.
And I have learned a lot of things from guys like Gary, but that's only because I have about 3,000 days on the water.
That helps. That helps.
Yeah,
That's
helps.
something
That helps.
on the water.
That helps. Well, anyways, please stick around, Gary. I'd like to talk to you. Ryan said, make the wind stop so I can go fish for what I want to. Ryan, if I had that kind of power, man, I'd have an awfully nice boat.
You'd be a multi-billionaire if you could make the website all the time.
If I had that kind of money, I would buy Elon Trump.
There you go.
And I said it that way on purpose. All right, guys, enough of that time talk. But I'm going to end this podcast, and Gary, please stick around.
Yes, sir.